What is good? Osiris here, stuck in the middle. I do uploads every day, circa 9 a.m. Mountain Time. I apologize if they're late sometimes. I'm just doing this as a side hobby. I appreciate you listening. Right now, for me, this is a time to recognize greatness. Now, growing up, I was a Cleveland Cavalier fan, young, impressionable man in early high school, I believe it was, when Jordan hit the shot over Craig Elo. I never forget. I was at the kitchen table listening to the game on AM radio to the late, great Joe Tate, the announcer. He had a great announcer voice, wonderful basketball fan. I actually got to meet him when I was younger. Great man, Joe Tate. And Jordan hit that shot over Craig Elo. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google Jordan Craig Elo, and it's bringing back bad memories. But you still have to recognize Michael Jordan's greatness. Like that was not to be questioned. The respect there was no question there. And that's how I feel about what's happening today. The Democratic Party establishment in our country is going to go down, along with other groups, as one of the greatest social, political engineering establishment groups of all time. And I'm going to go through this and talk about how the hate for America over July 4th, this is not a fad. This is not like bell bottoms where it's going to be out of style in a while. This is a changing of the culture and controlled opposition. Daily Caller has a great article that just laid it out. They did the work for me. Thank you, Daily Caller. Because I saw these articles and I was like, God, I got to get the list together. And then I saw them tweet this. I was like, this is everything. Hate for America has never been higher with some of the most powerful people. And they're all Democrats. All of them. The Washington Post, they published an opinion article. There's nothing more ominous than that. A Washington Post opinion article. Just straight trash. But it's relevant because it's out there. They're still a major publication, and big tech helps promote them. They are the trusted sources, right? Claiming that the Statue of Liberty was never quite measured up, has never quite measured up. Art and architecture critic Philip Kennicott argued that the statue is ambiguous and ambivalent and a symbol of hypocrisy or unfulfilled promises. He said that the statue faces outward as a welcome sign to European immigrants, but argued that these immigrants were seen as superior to Black Americans. I'm just going to go through the list of stuff here. In their annual reading of the Declaration of Independence, NPR, which is an organization that I used to love and admire, and since Trump has gone to complete hell in a handbasket, trash, just absolute garbage. I cannot listen to NPR anymore. And I'm sure there's some good stuff in there, but I'm not sifting through the trash. Like if you go through somebody's trash, you might find something wrapped up and you can still eat it, but I'm good. I'll go buy it. I'll go somewhere else. I'm done with NPR. In their annual reading of the Declaration of Independence, NPR declared that the document reads differently following the nationwide protest during the summer of 2020. The outlet wrote that the Declaration of Independence is a document with flaws and deeply ingrained hypocrisies. Well, life is flawed and deeply ingrained with hypocrisies. NPR is flawed and deeply ingrained with hypocrisies. I am flawed and deeply ingrained with What the hell is your point? This is where we're at now. And what is their reasoning? The riots and protests of 2020, which were, in my opinion, completely, the race part of it was just asinine. There is no proof. Even during the Chauvin trial, they said that they did not ever even bring up that Chauvin did it because of race. Because there was no proof of that. And now we're talking about systemic issues based on 2020, and none of it is directed towards systemic issues caused by legislation of the Democratic Party. That is the greatest flex. That's why they are the GOATs, or up there with the GOATs of the evil, or that's all perception of these organizations in history that have controlled people. Power, the most powerful thing that an organization like the Democrat Party or establishment can do is to control people. It's more powerful than money. That's why they control the media. This is opposition that is controlled. The hate for America, it's like firing off everywhere like a water gun. And there's one person you don't ever get wet, not even a droplet. The Democrat Party. They're throwing water balloons and spraying the hose and got the super soaker, and they're getting everybody wet with water. And there's the Democrat Party, and they're completely dry. There's not even a splash on them. You can talk about it and say this is just political gamesmanship and stuff, gamesmanship and stuff like that. You can say that. But when you start talking about race and hate of country, that's not a game. When you start talking about indoctrinating children, does that sound like a game to you? Is indoctrinating children against the will of people? That's not a game. The New York Times wrote a piece about how the American flag is now divisive for some people, given that supporters of, wait for it, given that supporters of former President Donald Trump waved it fervently. If you are triggered by the flag because of supporters of former President Donald Trump, there's something wrong with you, not anybody else. And again, we see who gets wet with the super soaker. It's usually not even the Republican Party. It is a little bit with Cory Bush and others blaming Mitch McConnell or whatever. But who gets the most wet? It's Donald Trump and Donald Trump supporters. I find that really interesting. So that's why you hate the flag, is because supporters of former President Donald Trump waved it. You need to go get help. If that's where you're at, you need to go seek help. You are being brainwashed. My view of the flag has nothing to do with Donald Trump supporters at all. The article described the flag as something that was once a unifying symbol, but now alienating to some. Today, flying the American flag from the back of a pickup truck or over a lawn, bringing it to normal, common citizens. Not everybody flying a flag is engaged with politics. Over a lawn is increasingly seen as a clue, albeit an imperfect one, to a person's political affiliation in a deeply divided nation. They're drawing the lines of this civil conflict. You walk down a neighborhood. What this is saying here? You walk down a neighborhood, somebody has a flag on there outside their house, or maybe it's even a blue live, whatever you call it, the police support flag, the Blue Lives Matter flag, or the flag that supports law enforcement. And now they're the enemy. That's what this is saying here. It's seen as a clue, albeit an imperfect one, to a person's political affiliation. So they're drawing the lines. We already have the lines drawn: vaccine, whether people should be taking the vaccine or not, that kind of stuff, critical race theory. There's so many other things we're already drawing the line on. And here's another one. Are you ambivalent about celebrating July 4th? USA Today's headline read, "You're not alone." And the article quoted Fordham University critical race theory law professor Tanya K. Hernandez, who said that minorities are hesitant to participate in 4th of July festivities. The article in USA Today is quoting a critical race theory law professor talking about this. Is any of this, because it says later on, Independence Day doesn't ring true for all Americans who have felt unwelcome in the U.S. or jaded by its politics. So they're bringing up politics. They're not afraid to talk about politics. But when it's brought up, it's usually with Donald Trump. And it's not even Republicans here. And look at what they come to later. They suggested to make room for social justice. Does social justice ever question Democrats? And I go online and then people will say, hey, you're just a Republican. Well, number one, I'm not a Republican. Number two, why does that matter? My point is, why is all this ire directed on everyone except for one organization. And no one answers that. I asked, is there any culpability for January 6th for Democrats? Oh, no, of course, zero. Literally, people say zero. Zero culpability for what happened January 6th with Democrats. What other concerns do you have about what the riots of last year? A lot of Democrats are in these cities with cops. They've been there for decades. Do they have any I know it's bigger than mayors or city council, but do they have any culpability? I mean, just a little bit? No, none. That's the feat. That's the greatest feat. How did they accomplish this? For you to even question it, now you are opposition. I'm not siding with anybody. I'm just wondering, why don't you ever question this group? Do you not see that means it's controlled? National Geographic had the most outrageous. You probably already heard about this. I'll just do it quickly. I'm going to get to a conclusion. It's a very serious one. Moreover, National Geographic insinuated that fireworks celebrations are racist. Scientists found that vulnerable people of communities of color are disproportionately exposed to air pollution from fireworks celebrations, the outlet said. It's right there. Democrat again, Maxine Waters, who's been in the House forever, started questioning the Declaration of Independence. What men? Only white men? Isn't it something they wrote this in 1776 when African Americans were enslaved? They weren't thinking about us then, but we're thinking about us now. She's in Congress right now. Cori Bush, of course, said that U.S. was on stolen land. Black people still aren't free. When she says black people still aren't free, their definition of free is different than ours. I might do a different video on that. It's just like race. Like when somebody says Candace Owens is a white supremacist, it's their definitions for these things are different than I would say sane people think. Over 100 people dead from gun violence in Democrat cities over the July 4th weekend. What is this? Does the Democrat Party have anything to do with this? Anything at all? This is over 100 people dead. What proportion do you think are for people who are into this identity, fall into some identity group, some intersectionality? Still, no complaints about the Democrat Party. None. You can't find it from Democrats. Because if you ask questions, then you're not a Democrat. What they've done by taking this approach that got them 80% of the black vote historically in like general elections, even more than that in some of these inner cities, they've taken that and expanded it to white guilt. And now they've got white people acting like black Americans have, like the Democrat Party is their Lord and Savior. They can do nothing wrong. They are just pure with great intent and no fault. Like Nancy Pelosi is the best ever, not to be criticized. You know, you realize if you criticize Nancy Pelosi on YouTube, your videos are demonetized very often. I like that because it shows me where they're at. It shows me it proves everything that I'm saying here. The National Education Association adopts motion to promote critical race theory in American schools. I'm not going in depth. This could be a whole series on this right now. But this is where I'm going to end it. This is going to be the straw, in my opinion, that breaks the camel's back. This is it right here. You look at Black Lives Matter. I searched the article. I've read all this, but searching the article to get to it quickly. The union intends to implement new special days in the school calendar and to bring in Black Lives Matter to assist the creation of special education materials founded in critical race theory. You're not going to hear anybody apologize and say they were wrong, that critical race theory isn't in schools. Here's the biggest union promoting, advocating, bringing in Black Lives Matter, and literally using the words critical race theory in schools. I debunked it in real time. It's been debunked. It's debunked now. It's over. We know it's in schools. Anyone with common sense already knew that. These include celebrations of George Floyd's birthday on October 14th, which will be a national day of action to teach lessons about structural racism and oppression. So they're bringing politics into the classroom. Why do I say that? Black Lives Matter, what are their list of demands? Convict and ban Donald Trump, expel Republican members, launch a full investigation, permanently ban Donald Trump, defund the police, don't let the coup be used as an excuse, pass the Breathe Act. What the hell is that doing in my child's school for? Are you serious? You can't be serious right now. Do you think people are going to allow for that in children's schools? You must be crazy. That has no place in a child's school. Black Lives Matter is not a good organization. It is not an organization operating on good intent. It is a political organization and has no business being in schools. What I'm ending with now is this 4th of July, I've chatted with a lot of people, and I thought it was odd, but then my wife was like, we have never, anywhere we've lived, any time in our lives, heard as many residential fireworks as we heard over this 4th of July. Popping off like crazy. Sounded like there were fireworks shows going on like right next door. Like it was insane. And I'm all for it. I'm not against that. My point is, the reason why I criticize the Democratic Party so much is that they don't get criticized. I am for balance. That's just my natural statement and view of life. So if the Republican Party didn't get criticized enough, I'd be criticizing them. And I have done it in videos. But my point is, life is always balanced. Life is a balance equation. This world is a balance equation. It all comes down to math and science. You can't have things like this pushed upon people without an equal and opposite pushback. That will happen. Do not get it twisted. That is the law and rule of life, and that has happened every place in history when anything similar to this has happened. There has always been, every single time, an equal and as concentrated opposition to it. Right now, we haven't seen it because it's like a relationship. A lot of people aren't aware. They're not talking about it. They're being silent. They don't want to lose their jobs. They don't want to be ostracized. They don't want to be considered extremists. That's not going to last forever. Let's talk about breaking it apart, going our separate ways. Facebook would have a Republican Facebook. It wouldn't be based on Republican, but whatever the red type of states were and the blue type of states, Facebook doesn't care. They would have a red Facebook and a blue Facebook. They would want to dominate each area. And then people can operate in their own realms and they have their own governments. I don't know how that would work because Democrats are ruling San Francisco and they're fleeing by the thousands because it's Democrats have run it into the ground. Companies leaving, closing down shop. So I don't know how that's going to work, but we are going to have to separate this thing if we want peace, because that's my number one thing. Because if you look at history of this, it's not always peaceful. Let's get ahead of it. Talk it through, be peaceful. I am beyond arguing with like the Cory Bushes of the world and people who agree with them. We just don't see the world the same way. What are we talking about? There's nothing to talk about. Let's talk about how do we do it so you can live in a world that you're happy with and other people can live in a world they're happy with. Because there is going to be a pushback. There is going to be opposition. We saw it clashing with the We Spa stuff. That's baby stuff. Let's stop it. Let me know what you think. Is it fair to call the Democratic establishment, that includes Republicans in the establishment as well, but Democrats are controlling it all, fooling people to get into the establishment through the Democrat door, and it's Democrats and Republicans in the building. Is that one of the greatest political and social engineering feats of all time? To get this many people, this angry, this hateful, and never put one little bit of iota of that hate towards the Democrat Party.